We are live now, though. We are live now. Part 2 of the Metal Voice Best of Albums of 2024. Joining us, the one, the only, Mr. Neil Turbin. What's going on, Neil?
Yeah.
Hey, great to see you guys. Looking good. Happy holidays and festivities and heavy metal, metal voice top 10.
Yeah.
The top 5 of the top 10, right?
Looking forward to hearing Neil's choices, and we did 6 to 10, and now we're going to look at the top ones today. So
That's what we're going to do,
can't wait
guys.
to get at it, man. Let's go, Jimmy. We got Neil. Let's go.
Excellent. Yeah, I watched
right.
the previous one with Kenny Kessel. That was great. You
Good
guys
old
did
Kenny. Oh, it's true. Kenny, the metal man on the east, the man on the street on the east. Neil Turbin, West Coast correspondent.
West Coast correspondent.
Some's got to, right? For 10
All
years.
That's right.
10 years.
10 years.
There you
10-year
go.
anniversary. We forgot the cake. Where's the cake? Where's the cake?
Hey, we made it through 10 years together.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
I'm going to send a virtual cake.
All right, so this is what we're going to do, guys. We're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alan, you're going to start it off. I'm going to get the graphics ready. Alan, we're going to go to your number 5 in the top.
All right.
Let's just get the traffics ready here. Alan, anytime you're ready, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm going with more Prague, released in October 18th of 2024. It's a DGM, an Italian progressive metal band. This is their album, Endless. I think they come out with an album a year. This is like their second album in 2 years. It's their 12th album. I mean, it's a concept album. A little bit of what do you do if you take a different path in your life? Everybody kind of questions themselves, right? Whatever I went left instead of going right there. So it's a little bit of a concept album. The songs kind of blend into each other. But like when I first listened to it, Jimmy, you're kind of working. You got this stuff playing in the background. You're not really focused. I'm like, okay, now they're more Dream Theater wannabes, But then, preparing for this show, I went back to revisit it, and I'm like, we're a minute 42 in, and a flute starts playing. What is this, Jethro Tull? And that's where it kind of sets the tone, where it says, "Oh no, hold on." Although the wake is more Dream Theater-esque, that song, the balance of the record is very surprisingly varied. You got the flute, you got all these different. Kansas influence. It sounds like Jethro Tull sometimes. So looking back, I thought it was an unbelievable album. I'm glad I took another second listen to it. And my faves are The Blank Pages and The Great Unknown. Those are my two favorite. But honestly, the whole album, it's great musicianship. And it's just so well done. It's so well produced. It's got a really nice sounding album. So hats off to them. I mean, 2 albums in 2 years. I mean, nobody does that anymore. And so this is Endless by DGM. Check it out because and give it yourself a few listens like I did. Don't just it might be a little bit of a grower, but the musicianship and the songwriting and the production, everything together is top notch. So
I agree with you. I hear a little Marillion. I hear a little Dream Theater. I hear a little bit of a Jethro Tull, like you said. And it kind of throws you off because you're thinking, oh, it's Dream Theater. Wait a second. Now we're going to Jethro Tull. We got little violins. We got a little flute happening. So, yeah, very good choice, Alan. Graphics, Neil.
Yeah,
it's all
yeah.
about graphics. But go ahead. Go ahead.
I know you're working
Jeff
on the
Waters.
graphics.
Yes,
But
go ahead.
But the thing about Jeff Waters is that, of course, you expect Jeff to come out with, hard and heavy stuff. Annihilator, brutal savagery on the riffing and just, intense, rock, heavy stuff. And I think what's great about Jeff is that, he's certainly, very well versed, not only in playing the hard and heavy stuff, but he's also, has other, melodic influences, other types of influences, and songwriting skills, and also production. I think his production skills also are another kind of aspect, to bring to light. So, well, I mean, obviously everyone knows, but I think the album American Chaos, he really shows, a side of him and his artistic abilities and his writing abilities that's far, more than just a heavy metal musician. And, I mean, he's eclectic, certainly. And And I just think that, the people, the cast of people that he brought together, he's got Chandler Mogul on the vocals, who did a great job. It's a fantastic album. It sounds great. The production's, stellar. And it deserves to be, in the top 10 list because it's certainly, hard-hitting album and great songs on there. And his love for Eddie Van Halen, I mean, that's mainstream,
Yeah, I listened to it, Neil. That's what I love about having you on the show. There's always these left turns that nobody thinks of. And I listened to it. I mean, My Little Devil, that song could have been on a Sash Jordan album as far as I'm concerned. Pasadena 4, that really captures, like you said, the Van Halen spirit. They do a cover of BTO, Rolling Down the Highway, my favorite Randy Bachman solo of all time. But it sounds like Coney Hatch doing BTO. So like you said, this is not what you expect from Jeff Waters at all. Sometimes it's
Yes, this qualifies perfectly.
He's preparing for something.
You screwed me up on the graphics, Neil. You screwed me up.
all right, Jim.
Let me do number 5. I'm going to number 5,
Thank you,
guys. Great choice too, Neil. I agree. Great choice. Jeff Waters is an incredible musician, producer, guitarist, a bassist, even singer. He's pretty good too. So it's nice to see him go out of the box and do something else. Here comes my number 5. Let me get my graphics ready for myself. Boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop. And number 5, going off the beaten path there, Alan. Triumpher, Spirit Invictus. This is Manowar on steroids. They hail from Greece. They kind of sound like Manowar, but more serious, less comical, less cheese. Drenched in Greek history and legacies. Fast and furious, epic. And this is the new breed, guys. This is the new breed. This is the bands that are going to lead us into the future of metal. Manowar meets Running Wild. Meets steroids. Solid production, guys. Love a song like songs on the album that I really like is Arrival of the Avenger, Athena, Spirit, Invictus, Triumpher, and Hall of a Thousand Storms. I don't know. I think these guys are a breakaway band. I like to see more. I like to see them really get a lot of traction in this coming year. That's it.
There's your thrash pick. I know Jimmy always has a thrash album in the top 10, and this one's it, right?
All right. Alan, you ready?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, I'm going to go with your graphic now. I hope you didn't change that. All right, go.
No, I didn't change anything. Chilean metal, man. I'm going with Cinders Blood and their album, their sophomore album, Dark Horizons. Came out at the end of September of this year. And you know what? I really like the band Eden's Curse. Maybe I'm missing them too much, or the fact that Symphony X or Evergrey didn't release anything in 2024. But that's why I enjoyed this album so much. I mean, it gives that type of feel. It's got a lot of variation on this album. You take a song like It Comes in the Dark, it's melodic, but sometimes it's poppy. And then it goes into an aggressive part of it. It's almost bordering on speed metal and thrash. And then they got another song called The Voice Within. That's completely acoustic. So, I mean, there's a lot of variations. The singing's fantastic, the keyboards, but it's in that whole Symphony X Evergrey vein that I enjoy, and I haven't seen anything from them in a while. So I decided to, and it's an album that I kept going back to and listening over and over again. So I enjoyed it. Cinders Blood, Dark Horizons.
All right, Neil. I'm going to get the graphics ready for you, but I'm going to let you
got a
say it
graphic.
before I pull out
He's
the
got a
graphics. I'm
graphic.
going to let you say it. Go
I
ahead.
got a graphic for you, Jimmy.
All right.
Oh, there it
what do we
is.
got? There it is. Okay,
That's
now
his-
I could put it. Now
that's
I
his,
can put it. You see, you kind of threw
I got
me
a
off
graphic.
There, Neil. Whoops, wrong one. There we go. Boom. Bada boom. There it is.
It's kind of too bright on the still plastic on it, but yeah, that one is for me. That's like the holy grail. Thin Lizzy, 1976. I mean, I know that there's a discussion that we had about disqualification zone, Alan. We're in the disqualification land because Thin Lizzy. I mean, obviously, we're talking about old material that's new or older material that hasn't been released, and it's the versions of Jailbreak. 1976 being a very important year for Thin Lizzy and for me, since I was about minus 13 back then. Just kidding.
What's that in Fahrenheit?
Yeah, and then of course Jimmy the Fox meets Johnny the Weed, or and that album also, you know, two of the most important. So you know, they're not the most important, but they're of the most important Thin Lizzy albums to me personally. And you know, that year 1976. I mean, I can remember being on a school bus hearing the boys are back in town, or it might have been 77, but whatever. You know, I mean,
I remember a Labatt commercial, and the boys are back in town.
I mean, it was on the radio, and then I'm like, okay, you know, you know, you feel the music sound vibration, and it's like, what's going on here? It's pulling me into this. I'm getting sucked into the vortex, you know. And I was in that Thin Lizzy vortex ever since, you know. And the music, the songwriting, I mean, you know, it's just incredible live performances from live concerts they included, but it's also unreleased demos, unreleased music from that era. And to me, that, you know, I mean, what could be better than that for a you know, huge Thin Lizzy fan who, I mean, that's one of the biggest bands for me, and certainly as a songwriter, you know, Phil Lynott, and you know, I've met most of the people from Thin Lizzy. I've had a chance to interview some. I've had a chance to hang out with some of them, and what a great legacy! What a great band! And you know, for me, that's what the spirit of rock and roll and heavy metal is all about, and that definitely is Thin Lizzy. You know, they're definitely that band for me. And there's other bands that I really appreciate, but it's kind of like it's a love affair with Thin Lizzy, and you know, I couldn't leave them out, even if I couldn't include them in the top, you know, list. I would, you know, have to mention the name. So
albums of 1976.
Yeah,
it's all good, Neil. We love you. We love you. We let it slide.
I'm a huge Thin Lizzy fan, so I have no problem with this. And I got my Live and Dangerous box set, so I can't wait to dip into the Jailbreak box set. So,
oh man,
thanks for bringing that to us.
And then there was the one before it, Rock Legends. What an amazing one as well.
All right, guys.
All right, Jim. I think you're up, Jim.
All right, Neil. We let it slide. We let it slide out of love.
All right,
plowing through.
We're getting somewhere in 2024, right? 2025.
All right, guys. Here is probably an obvious choice for most metalheads around the world. One of the biggest bands, a legendary band. This is Judas Priest, Invincible Shield. Massive debates all year long, or at least since the album was released. A step up from firepower, more melody, more instrumental sections within the songs. Thank you very much, Richie Faulkner, for raising the bar in the Judas Priest catalog and quality. Panic Attack, The Serpent and the King, Invincible Shield, Crown of Thorns, Horns, Trial by Fire, Escape from Reality, just a ton of great songs. It's good to see a band that's been there, just been around so long, still cranking out the quality. Guys, any thoughts on that?
I agree, Jimmy. I think Judas Priest, you know, they're just one of those kind of bands like Saxon, you know, they're just, you know, they turn out, you know, A-level product, you know, one after the other. And they have, you know, they have the ability, the level of, they're just on that level, you know, of that, producing that high quality. But on the other, on the Traverse side of it, the other side of it, I think, as opposed to Saxon, I think Judas Priest, you know, they're not the same band that I saw in 1981 at the Pier 9 in New York City for the Pepsi Festival that they played, and it was the last show in the U.S. after they played the Palladium in New York City twice, sold out, and then they played the Pier, which was a huge crowd, you know, there to see other bands as well. And you know, it was my first chance to see Judas Priest as a teenager, and I was like, holy shit, you know. And this was like, you know, for me, they were giving out, you know, KK Downing, he gave his vest out to the crowd at the end of the show. They were giving their belts out. I mean, it was like in the very early 80s, and I was just like, unbelievable set list, you know, Sinner and The Ripper and, you know, point of entry songs headed out to the highway. So for me, I saw them in that era. I saw them also on the Screaming for Vengeance tour with Iron Maiden at Madison Square Garden with some of the guys from Anthrax. Then I also saw them on Defenders of the Faith, which was later on, and well, right after Screaming for Vengeance, like the year after or something. So for me, that was, or 2 years. It was so amazing to see Priest during those eras, and I mean Halford and the crew, you know, Glenn Tipton, KK Downing, and also Dave Holland was great for the band at that time. But I loved them with Les Binks. I mean, for me, that was the sound. And of course, you know, Painkiller was cool. I mean, I loved Painkiller, of course, but I think the era that we're in now, it's modern metal. It's different. You know, it's
But
completely.
it's still good. It's still
good.
quality.
But for me,
it's still good quality. I hear you. Me too. I'm the same way.
For me, it's kind of like Thin Lizzy. Check it out like this. So Thin Lizzy, after Phil Lynott died, that's kind of what it is. It's like this Judas Priest for me that was hell bent for leather.
Me, Neil, Maiden's never been the same since Paul Diano left.
There he goes.
Yeah,
Let's get to 2024, guys.
They're doing a great job, and they're bringing new fans into it, and you know, they're keeping, you know, they have there's some formula involved, and there's also, you know, you still got Halford who can deliver. You still, you know, of course, the new blood, Richie Faulkner, he can deliver. You know, of course, Scott Travis, you know, is a great drummer. I mean, we used to share a rehearsal room back in Vernon, in California, when he was in Racer X. So, I mean, the band is certainly on fire. And the thing that's amazing is they've revived their career, in my opinion. They've as far as coming back and really reinvigorating and reigniting is the word I would use. Reigniting,
and that is a good word to use.
I just want to say, for me, it was a grower. You know, when it came out, it was like I found it one of the strongest Priest album in a while. Yeah. But man, you know, the more I listen to it, I have no problem. If somebody wants to put this as their number one album in 2024, I wouldn't have a problem with that at all. I mean, it's that strong of an album. So
I think it's an obvious one. And also compared to like Redeemer of Souls or Retribution, I mean, to me, this is a much more,
exactly.
You know,
this is a step up from Redeemer.
Or Nostradamus.
And Nostradamus, of course, and even a step up from Firepower, I would say. That's my personal opinion.
And Firepower was in the right direction, for sure.
Alan, let's go.
Number 3.
What do we got? Number 3, Alan.
Kenny keeps calling me and telling me what number we're at. He's got me in this here.
Bingo, Kenny, come on.
This was released in March, early release there in the year, March 2024. I'm going with Whom Gods Destroy with Insania. Right, a project by Derek Sherinian and Ron Bumblefoot, and you know, a new progressive metal band, and with Dino Jelusic, if I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but you know, he went out to sing with Whitesnake, or he was with Whitesnake a little briefly. For me, you know, there's so much variation. They're extremely tight sounding. They perform so well. I mean, you know, these guys are all top-notch musicians, and it's performed so well. My faves are Find My Way Back. That's straightforward rock as far as I'm concerned. And songs like the title track or Crucifer and Crawl, they mix all those forms. If it's prog, thrash, it's all there in one song. There's different movements, and you know, at first I listened to it, okay, it's, all right. But again, there was a grower on me, and it's just so well done. I had to put it on the list. The musicianship is top.
I agree with you, man. I liked it so much about the album. These are the sons of Apollo. Does that make sense? The sons of Apollo. You know, I agree with you, Alan. Everything you said, man. There's something special about this album. I would have liked to see them tour, but what are you gonna do? Hopefully they'll come out with another album, and maybe they'll go on tour. Neil, what do we got for your number? What are we at, Alan? A3? What, number 3?
We're going to number 3 to Neil's number 3 now.
Numero Trace, man. Numero Trace, man. Spending a lot of time in Latin America.
Right.
So Numero Trace, but we're going to go to a different continent for number 3. This is going to be to Europe. We're going to talk about Germany. So there's a band from Germany called Mechanic Tyrants that you may or may not have heard of, but they're quite the, you know, they're a hard heavy metal, you know, very active band playing a lot of live shows, and you know, came out with an album in 2024 that definitely got my attention. It's called St. Diamond Riots, and this band has a real Motorhead meets Metallica, like early Metallica kind of sound and Motorhead, and you know, they're actually quite excellent. And you know, the singing is great. They're not trying to be, you know, it's not trying to be Metallica, it's not trying to be Motorhead, but it's in that vein of, you know, if you like those bands, you probably would enjoy this band. And you know, but they're their own band, and they have, you know, quite an aggressive and fun theme to how they play and their style. So I think it's you you have bands like Tankard, you have bands that are fun bands that have thrash bands, and I think this band is kind of, it takes you back to the Metallica demo days. It takes you back to the the days of Kill 'Em All, going towards Ride the Lightning. So there's that aspect of, the band's done their homework and they have that retro vibe, so to speak, and I wanted to bring that one up so you guys can check them out and learn about new upcoming bands, because I think part of the issue with these top albums of the year type of broadcasts, and also the magazines that come out with this stuff online, it tends to be the generic stuff. It tends to be the stuff that's obvious, like the obvious bands. Like, let's just pick the 10 obvious bands that everyone's heard of.
That's not us at all. That's not us at all.
Don't bust our nut.
Right.
Don't bust our nut.
Right. But this band,
Don't
it's
bust
like,
my nut,
I know
Neil.
you guys
Don't bust my nut.
don't bust my balls. Yeah, right on, Jimmy. Yeah, so it's not you guys, but it's just in general. That seems to be what I see out there. You go to Loudwire, you go to Blabbermouth, you go to any of these places. That's what they've got, and it's Rolling Stone.
You know what, Neil? I think we're the best dressed, best of show. Are we not?
Classy, top class.
Do you see any other show that's still wearing the suits? We're the suits today. Today we're the suits. Nobody dresses as good as we do.
That's right.
All right, Jim, what you got going on?
You know what we like to do at the Metal Voice? We like to have a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new, and mix it all together and make a salad. Okay, here we go. What do I got?
You're at number 3, Jim.
I'm at number 3. Here we go. My number 3 pick. Yeah, sure. It's back to what Neil just said. The obvious. Stryper.
Yeah, we never go there.
When We Were Kings. My God. Jeez. Big production. Great mix. Heavy. Consistent. I would say, you know what? It's not as Christian as people think it is. It's more positive in spirit than it is Christian. Big songs. They have at least 4 songs that could have been big AM and FM hits on this album. Michael Sweet sounding better than ever. If you go back to the early days of Stryper, his voice was a little more helium-like, but now he's got a nice, rich, and I think that happens over time. You get a nice, rich voice over the years. He still has that range. The guitar playing, the tone of the guitar is still there, but most importantly, is the melodies. The melodies and the harmonies, they're all there. What an enjoyable album. Congratulations to Stryper, When We Were Kings.
Kenny brought this up. Kenny brought this up in the last show, how there's bands that are like vintage wine, right? He mentioned Saxon, Accept. Stryper is definitely part of that. And you take a song like Betrayed by Love. That's a perfect mix of the classic Stryper sound and the current sound. Like Neil said, this is almost a completely separate band from the 80s. They're always on that fine line of respecting the past but moving forward, and that's what Michael Sweet does so well, is giving it that current sound but with full respect to the 80s.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to Alan's pick now. Let's go back here.
Oh,
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Alan.
Yeah.
I just had to say, when I think of Stryper, I have this image in my head from playing shows with them in 1984 at the Country Club in Mercia, California, when I first toured out here, and it was the drummer Robert Sweet, like looking in a mirror. He had like a full-size mirror on stage, and he was dodging Bibles as they were throwing him back when they threw him out on stage.
Poor Robert.
So it's like when you say Stryper, man, that's what I see. It's crazy, but I guess no one remembers that, but you had to be
Even
there.
Jesus was persecuted, Neil. Even Jesus was persecuted.
Yeah,
so we got to remember, just like Robert Sweet.
Well, I'm going back to this released in the 22nd of March of this year. And, they've been around for 20 years. This is their 9th studio album. We were lucky enough to interview Alina. It just leaves eyes, missed a fate. So, again, the first listen, all right, Leaves Eyes album, you've got your Hammer of the Gods song, Fear the Serpent. That's your classic Beauty and the Beast vocal dynamics that we all love by Leaves Eyes. Nobody does it better, But other songs like Realm of the Dark Waves, that's fully realized and much more commercial than I historically commercially viable as something that I had not heard from them to this extent before. And songs like "Who Wants to Live Forever" or "Goddess of the Night," that's almost inching into Nightwish territory. So they've kind of the musicianship, the guitar solos are fantastic. That's something that really stood out to me on this album. It brings us to another album, a completely different level compared to previous Leaves Eyes albums, as far as I'm concerned. We were lucky enough to interview Alina, and she was just a delight to have on. And I've been a fan for decades now, so it was fun to speak to her. And but again, I think their sound is changing. Is it making them less distinct as they were earlier in their career? That's a question to debate. But this album, the more I listened to it, the more I enjoyed it. And I had this at like number 8, and it's moved up into the number 2 slot. That's how much I like this album.
It is a grower, Alan. Forged by Fire, Who Wants to Live Forever, Hammer of the Gods. A nice contrast in the vocals. That harshness of Alexander, right? It's Alexander the Kroll. Is that what his name is? And Alina. So it's perfect. Yes.
And they're from what country again? Are they Swedish or
well, German. It depends which singer they get. Sometimes at one point it was Norway, and now I think it's Sweden.
Right. Well, I knew they're from Nordic part of the world. So yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Leaves Eyes, and great band and consistent. And there's so many great bands from that part of the world, and it's kind of hard in the whole big picture of the best albums of the year, because there are a lot of great releases from that part of the world. So it's, you can certainly have a stacked list of power metal and symphonic and those type of bands. But one band that I'm not going to talk about, but I just wanted to mention.
Wait a second, no mentions yet. No mentions
yet.
No, mentions at the end. Mentions at the end. Mentions at the end.
I'll mention it after. That's true.
Let's go to your
Fair
number
enough.
3?
Nope, 2.
2. Okay, 2.
Numero dos.
Number 2. Dos. Unos dos.
All right, I'll mention it later. But
okay, mention later.
I'll mention this now. And this is a band that is from Sweden. Okay, so they do have that power metal sound, but they also are extremely melodic. They're pretty poppy on this album. So I would say that between the pop sound and the melodic metal sound, but they're excellent songwriters and excellent players. So the band that I'm thinking of is a band called Nestor, and they have an album called Teenage Rebel. And some people might think it's too poppy, but I think for them, that's their demographic that they're aiming for. But they're quite a talented band that's capable of hard and heavy as well as the real poppy kind of music. And I think this album is excellent. I don't really love it as much as the previous album, their prior album. It's not their first album, because they were a band that was around in the 90s, and then they came back decades later. So it's kind of a ironic return for Nestor. But this album, it's very consistent. They've been rocking the festivals in Europe and touring, and I don't know if everybody's checked them out, but they're a real solid band and really popular, for playing festivals like Sweden Rock, and they're a really loved band. And the cruises, they've been on that Monsters of Rock cruise, I think more than once. So I stay away from the Titanic myself, but what can I say? I'd rather stay on land.
You're right, Neil.
Yeah, I think Neil, you brought this band up. You brought this band up in the past too. So when I listened to it, I couldn't believe how poppy it was. It's a very AOR sounding. So that was a big surprise that this made the list, because based on what I've heard from the past, it wasn't as poppy as I remember. So
yeah, they leaned a little hard into the pop area. I mean, but there's still the hard and heavy elements. It's also the way that an album's mixed. They really went full hard into that direction to really be melodic, and that's cool. It's just a different sound. Everything's not for everyone, right? We all like different stuff. So, but I think it's worth noting, and certainly a band that it's a strong album for them, and I think it's it's a different pathway than maybe it's more like in the direction of Jeff Waters' music, like American Chaos. It's more in something that's mainstream that can break out. It's you could be surprised what can break out and be nominated for a Grammy even. Like music that's popular and it may not be melodic. It may be like it has rap or something in it.
It's true.
Who knows?
All right, Jim, you're up. You're
I'll
swinging
do
for the
it.
fences
I'll
here,
do
Jim.
this. Number two. Where's Kenny when you need him? Kenny, what number are we at? Okay.
Yeah, number 2, Jim. You're good to go.
Two.
All right. Number 2, here we are. You know what? I don't care if people say this is the obvious choice. The obvious choice sometimes is the right choice. Bruce Dickinson, the Mandrake Project. This was released in March as well, close to the Judas Priest release. I think it was almost around the same time. Solid production. Has definitely stood the test of time. Lots of twists and turns. You hear a little bit of Sabbath in there. You might hear a little bit of Maiden in there because there is a Bruce/Maiden song in there. A lot of jazz, a fusion, a little bit of Jethro Tull in there, and of course Roy Z with his fabulous guitar work and production. And I know Neil knows Roy Z over the years,
And I know-
a lot of.
and I know-
say something.
I'm sorry.
Eternity has failed, so a lot of people don't know this, but Gus G actually guests on the guitar solo on that song, which is a Bruce song, which is actually a Maiden song, which is back to a Bruce song. But go ahead, Neil.
I'm sorry. You're mentioning Roy Z, and great person and great ears, great engineer, great guitar player, and great guy to hang with, and fun stories. And I'm also friendly with some of Bruce's bands. So Dave Chili Moreno on drums. We've hung together, jammed together. It's cool that he's in Bruce's band. And it's a serious deal for sure. And also Chris Leclerc, the guitar player in the band.
Very cool. I want to state this. Afterglow, of Ragnarok, great song. Many Doors to Hell, Resurrection Man, which is
Resurrection Man.
Eternity Has Failed. I just love that version better than the main version. Mistress of Mercy, Shadows of the Gods. There's just so much there. And like I said, there's just so many different genres within a genre. And there's so many twists and turns. Bruce has done an excellent job. I think it's one of his best solo albums.
Yeah,
Solid album. Like you said, they were released Judas Priest and this, and you guys were debating, okay, which one's better? They came out at the same time. We had all these shows debating, and
strange enough, I was arguing with myself for the last week. Go ahead.
So,
for me,
I just want to
the
say
Bruce
this.
the Bruce album was stronger then. I found it stronger than the Priest album, but now if you ask me today, I prefer the Priest album than the Bruce album. So I flip-flopped on my
I did it mathematically.
my choice.
I went through every song and I wrote down a score. And then I divided by how many tracks, and Bruce came out on top.
You got an
Beat out
average for the
Invisible
album.
Shield. So there you go.
I should have gone down that
Go
road.
ahead. Sorry, Neil. Go ahead. We cut you off.
No, it's all right. You guys, it's obviously a lot of passion about Bruce Dickinson and also the Judas Priest album, Invincible Shield. So for me, like I was saying, I know the guys in the band, and so there's some intimate, friendship and knowledge and stuff behind the scenes kind of stuff. But really, a Bruce Dickinson album, you expect. I think there's a certain expectancy from the fans of, okay, it's Bruce from Iron Maiden, obviously, and they're expecting maybe some previous Accident of Birth, some previous, solo album sounding tracks. And I think it's very diverse. I think it's even more diverse than the past. Even he really, took it to another level, really. And that's what you would hope for. And of course, an artist like Bruce Dickinson, has that ability, and he also has the reach and the songwriting and the team behind him to get there. But I think for me personally, as far as like a top 10 album of the year, it wasn't my favorite album musically to listen to.
Threw it all down, Neil. What's going on?
No. But I'm just saying that the Bruce Dickinson and the Priest, it's like, to me, they were the obvious choices. And that's the only reason it's not on my list. But I think the Bruce Dickinson album, it's very eclectic. It's extremely diverse. It's a brilliant release. It's great. It's a great step for Bruce's career. I think, not that he needed to, but he did it anyway, and he could do it. And
I want to say something about what you just
takes
said.
it to the next level.
You know what? It's great to have new releases like Triumpher, like I said, bands like Neil's mentioned, like Alan's mentioned. It's great to have these new bands that people miss, or they didn't hear it, or somehow got lost in the shuffle, that were great albums, right? Or great bands, or great releases. But it's also, you need sometimes to state the obvious as well. If Bruce Dickinson came out with a great album, you got to mention it. Because you kind of lose. Right? Or Judas Priest. I mean, for God's sakes, they had a huge tour that they just went on with Invincible Shield. I mean, you got to state the obvious as well, as much as bringing in some stuff people have never heard before. So there's got to be a mix there. That's why we do the show.
I think it's great. I'm sorry. I think it's great that Bruce Dickinson, took it to the next level. He did things that were unexpected on the album, and I think he did things that were a challenge. And he stepped out of he stepped out of his the Iron Maiden lane to really take it into the express lane. He really he showed us something that maybe we haven't seen on all aspects before. And I think that's really, as an artist, very important. And I think for an artist like Bruce, who's touring with Iron Maiden, big tours, to do something fresh, to do something that's really invigorating and different, I think that's really, he really captured that whole, it's a whole different side of Bruce, right?
You bet. All right, guys.
So we do the honorable mentions?
What you got in there, man?
Or we're doing number one, then the honorable mentions.
It's what's Alan. How should we do this? Do we have to pass it to each other? Like pretend like you're passing it.
You have to throw it forward, man.
Okay. This is the walnut. This is the famous walnut. There's only a few in existence of this walnut. And inside the walnut, actually not Alan's album because I don't have it because we're virtual, but inside the walnut is the number one picks of 2024. Alan, we'll do the honorable mentions right after. I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. I'm going to open the walnut. Hold on. Go ahead. Okay.
What I did this year, anything that stood out, any songs that stood out, any albums stood out, I kind of squirreled them away for this show. Mm-hmm. And this is the one that was instantaneous. The first time I heard it, said this will be the top album of the year. It came out in October. Yeah. These are metal pedigree. I mean, Jim Mathias from Fates Warning, Steve Overland from FM. You got Joey Vera on bass, Simon Phillips from you name it. He's played with them, right? Yes, this is a very hard rocking kind of Bad Company feels album, but I mean, what an album. Jim Mathias releases his inner Mick Ralphs, and Steve Overland, just his voice alone, it fits so well the music, and it's their sophomore offering. I got to go check out the first one. I didn't even know about the first one. It's Battle Scars. It's called. It's for me. It's an equal dose of Bad Company and Axe. So if anybody remembers Axe, Bobby Barth, what a great band. Love that band. So it kind of falls between that. Between Two Worlds, Guns and Ammunition, and of course the title track. Those are my faves off the album. It's like so. It's really different for It's not North Sea Echoes, but it's not Fates Warning. So he's kind of releasing his 70s inner childhood of growing up in the 70s, and the result is this album by Kings of Mercia. So,
and that's Alan's pick. No drum roll, just a bell.
No drum roll.
Just a bell. Alan, great pick. A lot of soul in that music, a lot of metal and a lot of soul. So it's really good. Jim Mathias.
Steve Overland does a great job vocally. Unbelievable. Perfect vocalist for this type of music.
All right. You guys ready for this? Neil, now you got to go like this, Neil, as I grab the walnut from you.
All right. Send it over, Jimmy. Give me that thing.
All right. This album we do have. Actually, I just want to tell everybody that. Hold on a sec. Wait a second.
Big
there, something like that. Okay, now do it, Neil. Do it now. Now, put this arm up.
You got any salsa in there?
There it is. Okay, here we go.
Oh, lift it.
So the reason why I had Alan start is because me and Neil had the same pick for number one. So it's kind of like we'll say it at the same time.
That's from King Kong, right?
All right.
Where's
so
this other one, Jimmy?
Inside here is me and Neil's pick for number one album of 2024.
We agreed.
I will now open the walnut. I will now open the walnut.
Oh, there it is.
And there it is. Saxon.
Yes.
Hellfire and
Damnation.
Go ahead, Neil. Speak to it.
Hey, Jimmy, what Alan said about his number one pick, that's what I felt when I heard the Saxon song, and the Saxon song came out previous, right? It came out earlier with the video. It came out before, and I was like, holy smokes! I mean, these guys are just not messing around. And then when I heard other tracks on the album, it's like, okay, well, this had the theme. I don't know if the word theme is right. It's just the intensity, the impact, the driving force of previous Saxon albums that are more recent, where they're just on fire and furious, and Biff is just supercharged, and the band sounds supercharged. And for me, the songwriting, the execution, I mean, these guys are just they're top, they're aces in the game of putting out great albums and consecutive ones. And this is just a benchmark, I think, for Saxon. This is one of those albums for Saxon that's like, The Eagle Has Landed, Wheels of Steel, I'm probably saying the wrong names, but Strong Arm of the Law, there's just some albums that stay in your mind that are like, wow, these are like some of the foundational albums of the band. And to me, this is like one of those kind of albums for Saxon. It's a new era of Saxon, but it's the same Saxon that we know and love. And holy smokes, I mean, like, to me, this is the difference between this and Firepower, or way past that. I think this and Invincible Shield, I think Saxon should have been up for a Grammy, because this is, Saxon deserves it. I mean, they are an intense band, and they're doing well. And I mean, I know Biff's got some medical stuff going on right now, but I hope the band's back out there and rocking hard, because they're such a great band, and what a great group of people, but incredible professionals, and it's just great to see them churning out album after album. It seems like for decades.
Neil,
I mean,
right when you thought Saxon have hit their peak, they surpassed that peak. Once they surpassed that peak, they surpassed that peak.
Yeah.
These guys, storytelling, that's what I love about Saxon. The melody is always there. The stories are there. The burner songs are always there. The drumming. Nigel knows when to play it safe. To do that 4/4 groove. Then he friggin' knows when to friggin' double bass drum it and just go wild. The band is, and Brian Tatler, we should say, the injection. He's like the Richie Faulkner now, right? He's bringing just an injection of more ideas and music that's just sort of making the band better than they ever have been.
Yeah, it's a compliment. It's complimentary that they brought Brian Tatler in the band when Paul Quinn left the band. So
and Paul Quinn's amazing. Don't get me wrong.
I love Paul Quinn's work, but Brian Tatler, it really fills in very nicely with the band. It provides a different element, but it's it doesn't change Saxon all that much in terms of their sound, I want to say, as far as what the overall sound is.
And I think there are songs on this album that they're just going to be like classic Saxon songs for the rest of time, for the rest of the legacy of
Madam Guillotine.
Madam Guillotine.
Love it.
1066. 1066. Kubla Khan and the Merchants of Venice. There's Something in Roswell.
That's a great one.
Nation. Witches of Salem. They're freaking firing off on all cylinders on this. They go a little off a little bit, then they go back into that Saxon zone. Sorry.
Yeah, Madam Guillotine. There's Something in Roswell. I mean, the songwriting is, it's very reminiscent of the previous two releases in some aspect of similarities or comparabilities, but comparatives. But I would say that, they've taken it and they've raised the bar. Just like Bruce Dickinson, they've raised it up, like who would have expected this? And not only that, but I think the delivery is just savage. I mean, they came out like they're storming the gates, they're just, and we love it.
You do not want to follow these guys live. Do not follow Saxon live, ever.
Tom said it best. He just texted, there's no better metal band than Saxon. So I guess there you go. We have our top albums of 2024.
Incredible bands.
Now we can talk about honorable mentions. Guys, just the floor is yours.
Well, I'll just go with one. I mean, Nightwish, Yester Windy, Yester Wind, you call it. I mean, again, they're at the top of their game. Floor Jansen can sing the phone book and I'll still love it. unbelievable, but it didn't make my top 10 because it was a little too mellow for me. But the production, the songwriting, musicianship, I think she's duetting more with Troy now that Marcus is there, or I think Hightower, right? So it was just a little too mellow for me. That's the only reason it didn't make my top 10, but that's definitely an honorable mention. And the other bands, I just want to quickly point out, Jimmy likes the historic bands. If there's a Cloven Hoof album or a Thor album, he's going to throw it in the top 10. But this year, I have to admit, there's 3 bands from the 80s, Nightmare, Demon, and Praying Mantis. All 3 of them came out with fantastic albums. If we did a top 20 show, they would have made my top 20 just those 3 bands alone. And who knows? They might make our top 10 songs of the year. We don't know. Tune in and see.
That'll be with Todd Latore next. Todd Latore next with top 10 or 15. I can't remember. Neil, what about some?
Yes, I'm going to give a quick rundown just because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I just wanted to mention them. They deserve honorable mention for sure. And like you said, Alan, if there was more time to dig in details, but I think the fact that you mentioned Cloven Hoof, they have an album in 2024, Heathen Cross, and I think they sound great. The band is solid. I mean, they've got the singer from Jag Panzer on there. I mean, they're a solid band, and
Tyrant.
They're back on fire, and they're out there, playing gigs and rocking hard, and the band sounds great. I would say that so they deserve a mention. I think also on my list of honorable mention, I had Judas Priest, Invincible Shield, because it wasn't in my top. I'm just mentioning that because it is such a great album. I would put Bruce Dickinson there as well because it's these are fantastic albums, but they're just not my top ones. But I also wanted to mention just a couple of other real quick ones, and one of them is a band that Jimmy wants to kill me for because he's like, oh, you can't talk about this. But it's a band.
Lizzie, the other box set.
No, it's band. Obviously heavy metal. The origins of heavy metal, the roots, it comes from blues, and it also comes from classical music, right? So classical music. I'm not picking a classical artist because. But I have a blues artist in mind. It's A5 Blues Band, and they have an album called Testify.
Disqualified. That's why I didn't make the list.
Yeah,
disqualified.
Okay. It's disqualified. But you know what? These guys, they played heavy metal music before, and they've even done covers of heavy metal songs. But it's Altered 5 Blues Band, and these guys, they don't need our help because they're in the Billboard charts. But they are a freaking kick-ass band, and I think that they have a song called "Whiskey Got Me Married" or something. Anyway, great band. Check them out. They have amazing music, and it's not heavy metal, but hey, where does heavy metal come from? And not only that, but there's just a couple of others real quick. I'm trying to just look at my notes here.
Here, I'll mention one. As you look for it, I'll mention one.
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, it's Nigel. His sort of side band. It's 6x6 Beyond Shadowland. I was debating that one. Is it going to go on? It's not going to go on. It's more in the prog space, like the Asia, the GTR, Saga, because Ian Crichton is the guitarist, if I pronounce his name right or wrong. Right. A lot of Emerson and Lake and Palmer influence there too. I just think 6x6 Beyond Shadowland's a great album, especially songs like Obelix, Outside Looking In, and One Step, and Ren. Great album. I did like it. It was kind of like borderline for me, but maybe it wasn't as metal as my other choices. That's kind of why I kind of put it on 11 instead of 10, but still a great album.
Here's the album that I wanted to mention in band. It's a band that is on other people's top 10s, and in fact, it's some people's top album of the year for 2024. For me, I just can't get past Sesame Street. I don't know if they would have hired Big Bird instead of Cookie Monster, I would have been happy with the singing a little more. But the musicianship and the instrumentation, the songwriting is incredible. And it's just that, I mean, if you can handle that, cool. I just don't consider that singing. I think it's like growling or it's gargling. And gargoyles gargle, right? So anyway, the band is called Black Incantation. Have you guys heard of them?
No.
Well, they're quite, they're the death metal kind of sounding band, but very progressive. So I think Alan might actually really like them because they're prog all the way, and you know,
blood incarnation.
Incantation. They're getting lots of votes there in the comments.
Incantation.
oh yeah, I got it wrong. I'm sorry.
I got to tell you something. I put that album on, and I like the music, Neil.
Yeah,
It's just I can't get past the vocals.
sounds like what I just said.
I can't.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess we're just
All right, guys. Let's. I got a very important date now. Okay,
Oh,
so
boy.
let's start wrapping it up here.
Oh, you got some bullet.
2024 top 10.
That's it.
Yeah,
The
thank you.
best
Tune
dressed
into the-
guys in metal right here.
Don't forget to
Guys.
tune in for the top 15 songs of 2024 with Mr. Todd Latore. There's the Thin Lizzy, beautiful, beautiful box set. Lots of positive comments, Neil, on the comments during the show saying everybody loved the remix, the production. So thanks for bringing that to us. And that's a good Christmas gift to myself, maybe.
2024. What a strong year of album releases from heavy metal bands.
Definitely.
Full Voice. I mean,
Neil,
unbelievable.
thank you for everything you do, Neil. Thank you for being the
Yeah.
eyes and
Thank you,
ears
guys.
of the metal voice in the west part of North America. Thank you so much, Neil, for everything.
Thank
It's
you guys
always
for
a
everything
pleasure
and
to
for
have
having
you
me for
on.
10 years, man. It's amazing.
10-year
Yeah.
anniversary, Neil.
Here's-
10-year anniversary.
Here's to
Yeah, we
another
just-
10.
We just interviewed
Here's to
Tom
another 10.
Morello.
Cheers.
That's right. Tom Morello. Check it out. Neil Turbin.
We got him. We
Guys,
got him.
We got him finally. All right, guys. Have yourself a wonderful day, and thank you, everybody, for tuning